Have you ever walked out of a meeting feeling totally certain a plan was right, then hours later found yourself thinking, hold on, how did we all get that confident that quickly? Maybe nobody had really disagreed. Maybe the conversation had actually made everyone more convinced, not less. Welcome to Mind Decoded. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. Dr. Ann, what are we unpacking today?
We're unpacking group polarization. It's the psychological pattern where a group of people who already lean in one direction tends to leave a discussion leaning even further in that same direction.
Wait, that feels backwards. I always assumed that if you talk things through with other people, the group balances out, you hear different angles, and you get more moderate.
That's the intuitive assumption. But the data says something much more interesting. One of the earliest discoveries came from James Stoner in 1961. He was a graduate student at the time, and he expected that groups would make more cautious decisions than individuals because there would be more discussion and more responsibility. Instead, he found that groups often made riskier choices than individuals would have made on their own.
So the group didn't act as a brake. It acted like an accelerator.
Exactly. At first, researchers named that pattern the risky shift, but then they noticed it wasn't only about risk. If a group started out with a cautious lean, talking it through made them more cautious. The general pattern was that the group starting view got amplified. That's group polarization.
Okay, now I'm already having a self-recognition moment. In our team group chat, someone will say the new scheduling software is a bit clunky. Within 10 minutes, everyone piles on with stories about how it's the worst thing ever. And I join in too. By the end, we're ready to delete the whole system.
Haha, that's a perfect micro version of it. And there are a few psychological forces driving that. The first one is persuasive arguments. When you discuss with people who share your view, you mostly hear a lot of reasons that support that view. You're not hearing a balanced set of arguments. You're hearing a curated set of yes, me too arguments.
So my brain treats those extra stories as new evidence, even though they're really just more people agreeing with me.
Right. And the second force is social comparison. Most of us want to be seen in a positive light by our group. So we pay attention to where the group is heading, and then we present ourselves a little bit further in that direction. It's almost like a quiet competition over who can express the purest version of the shared opinion.
Oh, that's uncomfortable. I've absolutely said something more dramatic in a meeting because it felt like that's what the team wanted to hear.
And here's what I want to emphasize. Once you understand this mechanism, you might actually feel more compassion for yourself. This is not a personal weakness, it's a brain feature. People are deeply social animals. We subtly adjust to maintain belonging, often without realizing it.
So, group polarization isn't just about the arguments, it's also about identity and fitting in.
Exactly. And then there's a cognitive piece too. Repeated exposure to one-sided opinions makes that viewpoint more accessible in memory. Think of it like a trail in the woods. The first time someone walks through, there's barely a path. But when 10 people walk the same route, the path becomes obvious. Your brain doesn't need a stronger argument, it just needs the same argument repeated often enough.
That explains why repetition can feel like truth. It's almost like the path becomes the obvious way to go.
Yes. And what really surprised me when I first read this research is that polarization doesn't require a loud, aggressive argument or a charismatic leader. People can polarize simply by reading a few like-minded comments online, then restating their view. The mere exposure to other people's positions can shift us.
So even in a very polite, low-conflict group, the drift can happen.
Right. And researchers have found this in all sorts of settings. David Myers and Helmut Lamb did a major review of group polarization studies in the 1970s. They looked at decisions about risk, social issues, jury judgments, and found the same amplification effect across many contexts.
Juries? That's a little scary to think about.
It can be. Imagine a jury that starts out slightly leaning toward a certain verdict. As they deliberate, they mainly discuss reasons that support that lean. They also notice that several respected members seem more convinced. Gradually, the group can become extremely confident even if the original evidence was ambiguous.
And because everyone becomes more confident together, no one realizes the shift is happening.
That's the hidden part. Polarization feels like clarity. When several people agree and repeat similar points, it feels like the group is getting closer to truth. But sometimes the group is just getting more consistent within itself.
So the group's confidence and the group's accuracy can drift apart.
Exactly. And that is such a valuable thing to understand in workplaces. Let's take a hiring panel. Before the meeting, 4 interviewers might mildly like a candidate. After 45 minutes of discussing, they walk out saying this person is absolutely the one. But they may not have introduced any new external information. They mainly shared their positive impressions.
Wait, that's literally what we did with our last marketing campaign. We started by saying the concept was pretty good. After 3 team meetings, we were calling it a game changer. Then it underperformed badly, and afterward, nobody understood why no one had slowed us down.
That's group polarization hiding in the gap between evidence and confidence. The team didn't gather much new data, it mainly gathered shared enthusiasm.
Okay, that's the part that gets me. It really did feel like the more we talked, the more certain we became. But talking was the problem.
Talking with only like minded people can be the problem, yes. Because when everyone starts from a similar place, your discussions become an echo. It's like standing in a room with mirrors. You see the same idea reflected back from every direction, and it looks like it's everywhere.
That's a great image. And I bet this also explains a lot of what happens online.
It does. Cass Sunstein, a legal scholar, has written extensively about how the internet can lead to group polarization. When people join communities of shared views, they mostly consume arguments from their own side. Over time, their views can become more extreme than the views they started with.
And those people probably feel more informed, not less, because they've read so much.
Exactly. But they may have read one perspective 20 times. That feels like a lot of information, but it's really a narrow slice of the available evidence.
One perspective repeated 20 times. That should be a warning label on the internet.
It should. Now, I want to be careful here. Group polarization is not the same as groupthink. Groupthink is more about a cohesive group suppressing dissent to keep harmony. People don't speak up because they don't want to disturb the group. Polarization is different. There might be lots of discussion, but the discussion is lopsided.
So groupthink is more like, let's all just get along and not argue. Polarization is more like, let's argue but only using points that support where we already lean.
That's a helpful distinction. In group polarization, the group may be very talkative. It may even feel like a productive meeting. But all the fuel is going into one side of the fire.
Okay, so how do we interrupt this without becoming the person everyone dreads?
You don't have to become a contrarian. You can start with one simple habit: ask for the missing perspective. Before the team settles on a direction, say, what would the strongest argument against this be? Or has anyone heard a good case for why this might fail?
It feels a little socially risky, but I can see why it would work. It changes the conversation from agreement to evaluation.
And you can frame it as curiosity rather than doubt. For example, instead of saying, I think this is wrong, you say, before we commit, what would a smart critic say about this? That keeps the group's defensiveness low.
I like that. It sounds like you're inviting the team to think, not accusing them of being wrong.
Exactly. Another practical tool is to have people write down their views before the discussion starts. Capture individual opinions privately. Then after the meeting, compare the group's final position with those private ratings. If the group has moved sharply, you'll see the polarization effect.
That's like a before and after photo for decision making. If the before and after don't match, something happened in the discussion.
Yes, and some organizations use a red team. That's a person or small group assigned to argue against the favored plan. Even if the red team doesn't change the final decision, it can reveal how much of the group's confidence is built on shared agreement rather than new evidence.
That explains why the one contrary voice in a team can be so valuable, even if they're kind of annoying in the moment.
And maybe we should appreciate that person more. But even without a formal red team, you can pause when you notice a wave of agreement and ask, have we just convinced each other, or did we actually learn something new?
That's the question I needed last quarter. I can literally remember someone saying, everyone feels good about this, so it must be the right call. And that felt convincing at the time.
That's the illusion. Agreement can feel like evidence, but agreement is often just social mirroring. When everyone in the room starts from the same view, their mutual reassurance can look a lot like validation.
So the goal isn't to stop trusting teams. It's to notice whether the group is testing ideas or just intensifying what it already believes.
Yes, and once you understand this, you can be a little kinder to yourself about the times you got carried away. You weren't weak and you weren't foolish. You were responding to a very human social system.
I do feel less ridiculous about that campaign. We weren't crazy. We were just a group with no good friction.
Good friction. That's exactly the phrase. The goal is to add just enough friction to let real information in before the group slides too far.
I'm going to use that phrase in my next project meeting.
Please do. And here's a takeaway for our listeners. This week, in any meeting or group chat, pay attention to the moment when the group starts sounding more certain than the original evidence would justify. Ask yourself, did we learn something new just now, or did we just hear the same view in different voices?
And if you catch it, you'll see group conversations with completely new eyes.
If this episode gave you a useful lens, subscribe to Mind Decoded so you don't miss tomorrow's concept. We unpack one piece of psychology every single day.
And share this with someone who has ever left a meeting a little too confident. They'll know the feeling.
Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. See you next time.